For the majority of people in this day and age, ultra-processed foods dominate their diet. While there has been some push from society to change the quality of our food supply, and some companies are starting to make changes, it is still not enough. That's why I've created this step-by-step guide on quitting UPF for good. My diet is 90 to 95% non-UPF, so I'm in quite a great position to talk about this. And if you follow this properly, you will notice improvements in fitness, as well as physical and mental health. So let's get into it. So we're going to start by talking about the benefits of quitting UPF. This is how I looked back in 2019. I was a regular gym goer, but I was far from healthy and I didn't look or feel great at all. Fast forward a few years as we came out of the pandemic, and I started to educate myself and learn about the effects of UPF and how they affected the body. I began to learn about the effects of certain foods and how they were designed to increase your appetite to make you eat more. And as I was learning, I began to make gradual changes in my diet. But at this point, I was still not full anti-UPF. I still had some UPF foods in my diet. My main priority at the time was building a good physique in the gym instead of health. And so I still consume things like protein shakes, processed meats, and pre-workout. Over time, I began to learn more and more. And when I discovered the work of Chris Van Tolken, that was when I made serious changes in my diet. Since then, I've cut out all junk food from my diet, taught myself to cook, and I'm now in the best physical and mental shape of my life. Quitting UPF isn't something you can do overnight. It's more of a gradual change. It takes time to find healthy alternatives to replace the food that you're currently eating in your diet, or to learn to make something from scratch that actually tastes good. But try to imagine that every small change you make is you getting 5% healthier. So we're going to start with step one, and the first step is to recognize what is and isn't UPF. The definition for a UPF food is very broad and vague, but here it is. The definition of a UPF is as follows: formulations of ingredients, mostly of exclusive industrial use, made by a series of industrial processes, many requiring sophisticated equipment and technology. Instead of trying to make sense of that, start to look at ingredients labels before you buy. Whole foods are just base ingredients. So when you look at an ingredients label, it should just say one thing. And the more of these you include in your diet, the healthier you will be. So obviously the less ingredients something has, the less likely it is UPF. But this is not always a guarantee. For example, here's a couple things I picked out from my kitchen. Here's my protein, one of the few UPF foods I do actually consume. And if you look at the ingredients label, there's only 2 ingredients. But because one of them's an emulsifier, that makes it technically a UPF. Then I picked out this. This is a curry powder I use from Tesco's. So it contains 15 different ingredients, but they're all natural spices. There's no artificial ingredients in there. So this is still not a UPF food. This is why you need to be constantly educating yourself on what you are consuming. Because you could be eating something for a while that you think is fine, but it turns out it's got a UPF ingredient in it you didn't know about. Or vice versa, you could be avoiding something that's actually quite decent. And to add to the confusion, not all UPF is created equal. Some UPF is a lot worse than others. I'm a runner, so let's compare these 2 energy gels, which are both UPF. We got here the Cis gels, which are probably the most popular because they're so cheap, and the ones I use, which are Morton. When you compare these 2 ingredients labels, you can see why one is better than the other. Now, Morton still probably isn't ideal, and there probably is a few ingredients in there that's going to damage my gut health. But as of yet, I'm yet to find a running gel that is better than this. It's up to you how far you want to go with the UPF and how much you want to cut down on, and if you want to keep some of the less toxic UPFs in your diet. If you're watching this video, then I'm assuming you have an idea of what UPF actually is. But to start off, research and educate yourself on these ultra-processed foods and the effects these artificial ingredients have on our physiology. Sweeteners, flavorings, emulsifiers, preservatives and additives, all these things have negative effects on our health. And when you can identify them on an ingredients label, that's when you can start to make real changes. Start to study the work of Chris Van Tolken. He's got a load of videos on YouTube, on different podcasts. Or if you really want to go in depth, get his book, Ultra Processed People. Here are some UPF ingredients to seriously avoid. If you're going to make changes, then start here, because these are some of the worst ingredients you can be consuming. Now we're in step 2, where we want to start assessing what UPF foods are in our diet and finding healthy natural alternatives. While researching this video, I found another one about UPF from this morning. So the purpose is to suggest what UPF foods to remove from your diet, but the ones they suggest are also UPF ingredients, albeit not as bad. But the annoying thing is, they could have just suggested some natural whole foods instead. So they start by talking about cereals, and these in general aren't really a good food. But they say to switch to Weetabix from Shreddies, because although Weetabix are still technically a UPF, the additives they contain are just vitamins and minerals added in. So they're not that bad, and they also contain less sugar. This is true, but you also have to think about the quality of the food that you're eating. Most modern grains are of poor quality and covered in pesticides. Me personally, I would have suggested some porridge, maybe with a bit of honey as a natural sweetener. Only 2 or 3 ingredients, so you know exactly what's in it, and you're getting a lot more nutrients as well. Next, they talk about fruit and nut bars. I checked the ingredients of both these bars, and while the Naked is a million times better than the Cadbury's, it still contains a flavoring, and this ingredient basically tricks our physiology into thinking it's getting something that it's not. It says it's natural, but it doesn't matter if the flavor is natural or artificial. Your body associates flavor with certain nutritional intake. And when that nutrition doesn't arrive, your appetite will increase as your body is looking for something that it's not getting. This is one of the ways that UPF hacks our physiology. And again, while this isn't one of the worst products in the world, it's still not great. One of the best mindsets you can get into for this anti-UPF diet is to think that you're eating to nourish yourself more instead of eating for pleasure. Instead of either of these, how about a banana? Just 1 ingredient and a lot more nutrients. I don't want to talk about everything in this video. I think they just tried to find products that were more just for convenience and more affordable. And while the foods they suggest are definitely an improvement, the lack of whole foods is shocking. We want to eliminate the bad, but replace it with the best we can get. Hopefully this gives you an idea of the kind of changes you really should be making. And as you make these changes, you'll realize the importance of step 3. I've watched many videos about Chris Van Tolkien as well as read his book. And the one thing I disagree with him on is that this is not our fault that this has happened, and that the responsibility is on big food and government to fix. It is not our fault, but it is our responsibility. He talks about the fact that it is unaffordable for low-income households and that it requires a lot of skill in the kitchen. Only the second part is true. Replacing UPF foods for natural whole foods in your diet is very affordable if you know what you're looking for. I know because I've done it myself. However, being able to cook healthy meals at home from scratch does require some skill, but it is doable. My suggestion is to find simple homemade recipes on YouTube you like and follow along while swapping out any UPF ingredients they suggest for natural, whole or organic ones. Once you have a good base of 6 or 7 recipes that you've made a few times, you're good to go. But I would suggest continue to expand your knowledge and learn new ones, as that's where the fun is. I started off with simple recipes like spag bowl and cottage pie at first, but as I began to find a passion for cooking, I started to challenge myself a bit more with some more out there and exotic dishes. And this can happen for you too. Finally, to finish, I've made a quick fire list of some changes you can instantly make to your diet. Even if you don't want to be as extreme as me, I would suggest making these changes permanently, and you will see massive improvements into your health. Starting off with butter. All we need is plain old butter. You don't need any of these spreads that contain seed oils and additives and preservatives. Just look at the ingredients list of the two and you can see the difference. When it comes to oils that you're actually going to cook with, you want to be using coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, butter, or some of the animal fats like tallow and lard. You should probably have 1 or 2 of these at least, because they all have different smoke points and different flavors. So depending what you're making should determine kind of which oil you should use. Only buy meat that is 100% meat, no additives, preservatives, or especially nitrates. This is why red meat has got such a bad name, because of processed ingredients like this. If you take those away, and it's one of the best things you can eat. They say bacon is one of the worst things you can eat because of the nitrates in it, but if you take away the nitrates, then it's just meat and there's nothing wrong with it. So it's not bacon that's the problem, it's the nitrates in it. A little bit of added salt or sugar in your meat is fine though. Finally, the last change I suggest to make is getting rid of any artificially sweetened juices and sodas in your house and just having plain old water and milk. You can get bottled water, which is probably better than the water from the tap, or if you want to be as extreme as me with your water, you can buy a high-end water filter. As for milk, try and buy organic, or if you want to be as extreme as me, find raw milk from a local farm, as this is actually a really good quality food. But that's everything for this video. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.